All right. Thanks, Martin, for the introduction. It's great to be here on the stage. As you know, my name is Pung, but for those of you who don't know, I actually recently joined Checkmk last year in August. So I'm, not super new, but still quite fresh to Checkmk. And in my previous life, I'm actually consider myself a cloud native. So I had 2 startups, and we had all the infrastructure ran on the cloud. All easy target: AWS, GCP, Azure, you name it. And since I'm just started Checkmk, I don't really know the product, right? And what's better way to learn how the product works than just try to use it? So I said to myself, let's try to set up cloud monitoring in Checkmk. How hard could it be, right? I mean, famous last word. At that time, I had quite a few things running on my private AWS. So I have a few EC2 instance, some S3, some elastic load balancing, and so on. So my goal is to, seeing all of these instances showing up on Checkmk. Remember, I never used Checkmk before, right? So let's try to go through it together. So I have this Checkmk running. So first off, I try to set up the AWS. So obviously, I see the word setup. I click there. OK, I didn't see any AWS words. So obviously, naturally, I go to the search in setup. I search for AWS. OK, I've been presented with quite a few options. But I guess it's here. So I click in there. I see the button to add rules. OK, I guess let's click add rule. And now I'm getting somewhere. It's asking for the access key from AWS. OK, I know how to do that. I went back to AWS, get the key, come back again, insert the key. I scroll down. OK, there's some service that I can choose to monitor. That's great. Then I scroll down more. And now it's asking me to add an explicit host. And at this point, I kind of get stuck. I mean, I think for thank you. So I think for all of you, you probably thought like, Pung, you're stupid. Of course you do this, and this, right? But imagine I was a cloud native person. I thought like I could just do it without asking anyone, right? And at that moment, Martin, my supervisor, he came to me and he said, just like Yoda said, hey, Pung, use the docs. I mean, he said in a more, angry way, I would say, not like Yoda, but still a very wise word. So I took that, I went to the documentation, I read through it, very comprehensive, very, very nice, right? So it turns out, first I have to create a host, and then I need to make sure that I set it to no IP. At that point, I'm not asking any question. And I have to go back to rule, then I can set up the rules, and then now I can choose that host. But that's also not enough because EC2 instance will not show up. So I have to go search for DCD, which somehow stands for Dynamic Host Management. I go in there. I have to create a DCD, and then I have to create a piggyback, which is the mechanism of so that one host can get another host. That's great. And now I have to go to activate change, mainly activate the change that I just made. And then I have to go back to host and run service discovery. And then I start seeing, my instance showing up. I can start monitoring it. And, despite a little bit of struggle, I got it running. And that moment, I actually understood why people love Checkmk so much, right? I find Checkmk very useful, very powerful. Whatever I imagine, I can do it, right? I can create like a custom dashboard. I can find like whatever I want to do. I can monitor anything. So happy ending, right? So, or is it, right? I'm a product person. I have been, working on product for 10 years. It's my job to try to look back and try to understand what I have learned. So, what have I learned from those experiences? Obviously, maybe I should read the docs, But as I said, I'm a cloud native. I don't really read docs, right? I think the docs should read me, if otherwise. So I did time. So basically, like from start to finish, when I start to set up AWS monitoring. So it took me around 25 minutes, give or take. Include everything that I struggle. Martin came to me, tell me to read the docs, and so on. And then I was curious. I try other monitoring products. And then I plot out basically the time. How long does it take for me to set up AWS monitoring in other peer, our closest peer, probably. So good news is we're not the worst, but in the same time, we're also not the best as well. And it's actually nobody's fault because, the more features you have, the more complexity the product gets. That's just like the rule of law, right? And just to shout out to Jonas, he did this animation. I love it so much. And the more feature, the more complexity. And the more features we have, it's really hard to make things simple. And making things simple is a very difficult tech and design challenge. So according to the law of conservation of complexity. So if you know the rule, it's basically say like you can never remove the complexity. You can only move it somewhere else. So in this case, from the user perspective, maybe to the code or to the development. So if I have to plot a quick graph here. So we have time on the x-axis, value on the y-axis. And let's say we have two kind of values. So we have basic values and advanced value. Basic values means I can, start seeing some of my infrastructure up there. I can see the CPU usage. I can see if it's up or down, and so on. Advanced value means, you can set like complex setup, setting up notifications, and so on. So this was my experience. So it took me quite some time until I can get the basic value of the product. Again, this is specifically for the AWS monitoring. And the main reason, not only one reason, but one of the main reasons is that I have to go to the documentation, try to do all the steps that require in order to set it up. And I'm calling this time to value. Christian mentioned it before, so it's basically how long does it take until you get the first value of the product. And the higher the time to value, the higher the chance that you just stop using it and give up and try other products, right? You can think it in a sense of like if you start a show on Netflix and the first episode doesn't really hook you, you're probably not going to watch the second one, right? And it is our goal to actually bring the time to value down to 5 to 10 minutes. And how should I do it? Well, basically, we just need to reverse the graph like this, right? So in order to get the basic values, the documentation should not be required. The product should be self-explanatory. It should explain itself. And if you want to get advanced value, sure, we point you to the documentation. Then you can get more advanced value out of the product. But how, right? I mean, it's a little bit, fortune cookie wisdom, what I said so far. Let me try to walk you through how we tackle this problem. So as you know, Checkmk has so many configurations, right? And you as a user, you need to know which configuration to use to combine and make your monitoring work. So in this case, you need DCD, rule, password store, host. And of course, when it comes to rule, like what kind of rule? Like, is it service rule? Is it host rule? Is it active check rule? There's so many kind of rules, right? So what we do is we highlight all of these for you. We connect it for you and straight out and package it and send it and give it to you. I'm incredibly proud and excited to show you the first ever world premiere sneak preview of what we are working on when it comes to new multi-step workflow. So, of course, subject to change. So you cannot sue me later. So let's start. So let's do the same scenario. I want to set up AWS. And so Checkmk, we know, right, that you haven't set up anything yet. So when you go to setup, you will be presented with an option to do a fast setup. And let's say I want to set up AWS as usual. I click on there. Now I can add a new AWS configuration. And here we start showing you a clear step of what you have to do. And if there's some part that there's a documentation that you need, we also pull the documentation, put it there so that you have to switch around and so on. So let's say I have the AWS access key already. So I put it there. And when I click next, as you can see, the first step is collapse into a summary state. And then you are on the step 2, so you know what to do next. Again, here I just pick a region. I choose Frankfurt, Ireland, and London. Again, I click next, the step 2, collapse into summary, very simple. Again, step 3, I have to select a service. Let's say I do EC2, EBS, S3, ELB. Here, again, I'm fine with this. So every step you can always look back and make sure that, OK, what I did was right, and what I did was like something that I want or not. And also, we also do a test connection for you, meaning like if you, let's say you provide a key, but somehow the key doesn't have access to your S3, we're also going to show you error message. So you know directly, OK, I have to change this and so on. So let's say you are quite happy with this. So I can click Save and run service discovery. Here we show you a preview of what we found. So in this case, some EC2, some Lambda functions, some S3 buckets. And let's say if you're happy with it, I just click Go to Activate Change there, and then I'll see all my stuff there. So from our internal testing, it took around 5 minutes, give or take. Again, shout out to Anisa to tirelessly test with me over and over again. But what if you want to change something? What if you change your mind, you want to change some service and so on? So you can just go back there. You can see that there's a configuration. You just go inside, and as you can see, we unifying the configuration. So here you will see your host, your rules, and all the familiar stuff, right? So we are not actually stop you from going advanced. So you can do whatever you used to do before. We just try to help the new user to get started quicker. And this is the future of multi-step configuration workflow. We are unifying the configuration experience. We make it easier for you to start and set up. We're starting this with AWS, Azure, and GCP, but we are not going to stop there. We will expand to other services, such as VMware, LDAP, etc. So with Checkmk 2.4, starting using Checkmk will be much simpler, and you will find that overall experience going to get much better. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm open for questions.
So let's go with the one question which we have. So there you see it, yeah?
The answer is yes, but which one, I don't know. It's still moving target. I don't know, maybe you know it.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, let's first get the first ones done and then see what makes sense as next step. And then I think the entire concept of what you have seen with multi-step workflows, you will see that probably a little bit more in Checkmk. And you will probably also see it in our next talk, I assume.